Hey everybody, another video. I was just in the greenhouse watering my starts, my summer vegetables, my tomatoes, my jalapenos, my squash, stuff that I had to start in the house, and I thought, well, I might as well explain my strategy, procedure for starting in the house. So what I start with is I've got this shelf. I got this from Bimart. I want to say it's about 2.5 feet deep, 4 feet wide. I don't know what, 4.5 feet tall. Anyways, I was able to make a couple of trays that would fit into this. By the way, I got it free from Bimart. They have these during your planting season sitting out with their pallets, and they give them away. I was able to make these trays that I was able to line with plastic. That way I don't get leakage. What I do is I take this shelving unit into the house and I put it in the living room where we like it as warm as we can get it. I usually start here in the Northwest. I usually start towards the end of February is when I start my indoor plants. And I got these shop lights. They're the, I believe, T38 or T32 bulbs. So they don't use a lot of power and they're relatively inexpensive. I got 4 of them. And what I did with the bulbs is I got 1 warm, 1 cool for each unit, each light. That way I'm kind of giving them like a full spectrum of light. And so I switched out the bulbs and I've got, one of each in each. And it's a 2-tier system. I know this is kind of messy. We already got our starts done and moved them out to the greenhouse and to kind of get bigger before we put them in the ground. And so now I've got it back in the shed and now it's storage. Anyways, so the key really is these big pots. These are 7 inches tall, 6 inches wide, and I use the same potting mix that I showed in a previous video that I use in my garden. And so you'll have to go back and look at that to figure out the ratios that I use and stuff like that. It's not a perfect science, but anyways, so I plant my seeds in there. I put them under here. I've got them on a chain system where with some screws kind of in the outside of the shelf so I can adjust it down. And I put the light literally an inch from the soil, or when they sprout, an inch from the plant going up as they grow, and adjust them. So a lot of times these will be tilted, and I'll move the slower growing plants down to one side and the ones that are a lot bigger over to another side, and just try to keep that light as close to them as possible. Usually grow them, well, basically until they don't fit anymore and they start touching the light bulbs. And that works out here in the Northwest because at that point it's warm enough. It's usually early April, mid-April, where I can move them out to the greenhouse. And then we let them get bigger. I don't put them in the ground, even though all frost chance is passed. I leave them out in the greenhouse because they're going to get bigger. They're going to grow faster. If I put them in the ground, they're kind of going to get stunted and they're not going to grow that fast. So I let them kind of really fill up this pot. And this is the reason why I use a big pot. Really fill this pot up with a lot of roots. And they're really getting all those nutrients, and they grow really great in this little greenhouse that I have. So I'll show you the greenhouse. And the key to the greenhouse really is that you cannot leave it closed during the day. I don't care if it's overcast or if it's super sunny. You got to open that thing up and let the air flow because it gets really hot in there. Even with the door open and the windows open, you can walk inside this little greenhouse and you're going to notice a huge difference in temperature. The bigger your greenhouse, the better. a small greenhouse is going to get way too hot way too fast. This is a 6 foot long, 6 foot tall, 4 feet wide greenhouse. Fairly inexpensive, usually about $100. So these have been in the greenhouse. Of course, most people know about hardening off. You want to, when you're getting ready to move the plants from inside to the greenhouse, you want to take and put them outside for 3 days. So first day you put them outside, you want to keep them out of direct sunlight. They need shade. Put them in the shade. Don't let them get any sunlight. First day outside in the shade. Bring them in at night. Put them inside. They don't need sunlight. They don't need more light. Just put them inside. A garage works great. Next day, put them outside. Same thing, in the shade. Third day, same thing, in the shade. You bring them in every night. Fourth day, I'll let them have some sunlight. And then I'll put them in the greenhouse that night. And this is a system that has worked for us. So with your tomatoes and, well, pretty much everything, you want to let the soil get not bone dry, but like a sponge that you got wet, wrung it out, and then you can feel it with your fingers, and it's just like, oh, there's a little bit of moisture there, you know. That's about where you want it. When it starts to feel drier than that, it's time to water. Water it like crazy. Get every little bit of soil completely saturated, and then let it dry back out again. You don't want to keep them totally wet. These are vegetables, summer vegetables that are used to being kind of dry. Let's see. So my watering, I always use these little things. These little, I don't know what they are, maybe a quart and a half, 2 quarts. And they have these tiny little spouts, which are great for getting in and not damaging the plant. Also not getting water on the leaves, because they don't want that. They don't need that. They just need it down here in the soil. And I like to use a bigger can to refill my little cans. I leave the little cap off of this, makes it easier to fill them, makes it a lot quicker. Another thing I want to note about your vegetables inside, well, I can't remember what I was going to say, but one thing I want to say about peppers especially, they don't want to be wet all the time. They want to get soaked, but they want to dry out. And especially when you're dealing with jalapenos or any kind of pepper that you want to have hot, if you water them all the time, they are not going to get very hot. When it's time to harvest, they're not going to be spicy. You need to let those things dry out, kind of make them mad, you know, make them hot. And that's another little tip that we've learned over the years. I wish I could remember what it was I wanted to say before, but anyways, that's a good couple of tips for today. By the way, I'd like to highlight this vegetable. This is called an achocha. It kind of looks like a weed plant, right? I think it's 2 less leaves, but this is a vining, fruiting, it's almost like a cucumber, but the fruits are hollow and it's very aggressive. It will grab onto anything and climb. And I got this from, well, I had it shipped from Peru, from South America. I'm not sure that was really legal, but it's here now. It's not invasive in the Northwest. The seeds die off, but it's an interesting plant, and the bees love it. And the whole plant is just a buzz when it's in bloom. It has these tiny white flowers that you can barely see, but it's always fun to play tricks on your family and friends, and they think you're growing weed. All right, everybody, have a good day.